Hi everyone, I'm Natalie.
And I'm Michelle, and we're reference librarians at Cook Memorial Public Library District, and we read nonfiction books.
That's right, we do, because truth is stranger than fiction.
It is. That's why we started Nonfiction Book Report, to highlight newish and noteworthy nonfiction books for your reading and viewing pleasure.
Yes, but before we get into today's books, we do have some business to take care of. Today's NBR is brought to you by the Bookies. If you're looking for fiction recommendations, the Bookie team has you covered. Their extensive library can be found on the library's YouTube channel. Click on the Bookies playlist.
We're also brought to you by CMPLD. We offer a wide range of library programming to benefit our diverse community. You can see all the library's programming on the library's website under events or in the Ins and Outs newsletter.
Of course, if you have any questions, you can always call the library or stop by the reference desk. We're happy to answer any programming questions or get you registered for an event. So, with that out of the way,
Yes,
it's March, right?
It's March. We have
Memoirs. Memoirs in March, which memoirs are kind of a hit and miss. It really depends on who's writing.
It does.
So I have with me Sipping Dom Pérignon Through a Straw, Reimagining Success as a Disabled Achiever by Eddie Ndopu. Eddie Ndopu, he was born in Africa, and when he was a baby, they said he wouldn't live beyond the age of 5. And he's actually now a global humanitarian, and this book is about his adventures in Oxford getting a master's in public health.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so he was accepted to Oxford, and actually, the way the book starts off, and I really do feel like it's a great way that he starts it off, because a lot of what he's talking about is autonomy.
Okay.
So his condition is degenerative. He had more mobility when he was younger, and as he's aging, he's losing the ability to move his body the way he wants. So he's becoming more and more reliant on caretakers to provide him just with the average activities of daily living. So taking a shower, brushing his teeth, getting dressed. And in the course of that, he surrenders a lot of his autonomy to his caregivers. And so the book starts off, the scene is he's at Oxford, he's on his caretaker is there. He refers to his caretaker as Six, because it is the 6th person he's had to deal with in the short time that he's been there. And Six is giving him a shower, and he's talking about how, for us, he calls us, what did he call, uprights. For us uprights, getting ready in the morning, getting dressed, it's not something you think a lot about, but for him, it's orchestrated. Everything has to kind of happen, and he gets up very early in order to do the things that he needs to do. So they're up bright and early, and Six is giving him a shower, and then there is a fire alarm. And he doesn't have the autonomy to say, we're going to ignore this fire alarm because there's shampoo in my hair, and I'm not going out there butt naked. We're going to bleep that. And Six is a rule follower. And Six is his caregiver. And Six does not listen to the words that are coming out of his mouth. And the way he describes it, it feels like an assault, because he takes him out of the bathroom with shampoo in his hair. He's wet. He's naked. It's cold. It's dark. His classmates are out there. He's in a wheelchair. He throws a blanket on top of him and forces him to go outside. And everybody's standing out there, and it's cold, and he's shivering. And then when it's all over, he has to go back in and get ready, and he doesn't have time now to even wash the shampoo that's in his hair. So that's how it starts off, right? And so here he's this scholar at Oxford, and he is doing these amazing things for humanity, and but he's also having to deal with ableism everywhere he goes. So he's gotten a scholarship to Oxford. So after the shower scene, it switches back to him getting his acceptance. So he gets accepted to Oxford, but then there's no notes about his caregiver, Lucky, who's been with him for years, and they kind of have this relationship where he doesn't really have to say things now. Lucky can know, and so they kind of are moving as one. And so you would want that person to go with you to Oxford, right? Because then you would have that. It's one thing you don't have to worry about. As somebody who relies on other people to care for him, that's one less thing that you have to worry about. But there wasn't money in the scholarship for Lucky to come with. Then he had to fight for it. And so he fights for it. And then he gets the money. He also does a self GoFundMe, what do they call it? Campaign where you self-funding campaign, crowdsourcing campaign for I forgot what it's called, like Oxford Educated was the hashtag that they used, and he raised money. And then Oxford came in and said, okay, we'll make up the difference. And then Lucky was going to go, and then Lucky couldn't get a visa, and so then he had to go without Lucky, and he had to rely on caregivers. And right off the bat, it does not go well, because the person that comes and takes over from Lucky gets, she's instructed, he calls her one, she is instructed on like how to transfer him and stuff like that. And then she's only there for the journey to the train station in England. And then she transfers him off to 2. And he's like, I don't understand what the whole purpose of us doing that whole teaching you how to do this when you weren't even going to be. Then 2, so then they get to London, and 2 is so the IHS, which is I think it's IHS in UK, have regulations about caregivers, and they're not allowed to lift. So you have to use a hoist. And so he's talking about how inhuman the hoist is. And 2, first of all, she's a woman, and she doesn't seem that strong, and she's just very reluctant to lift him, and right away starts pawning it off on the housekeeper who like cleans the rooms. Plus, when he gets there, the room he was promised is not ready, and he's in a different room. It's like one obstacle after the other. And all of these things that as uprights, we don't think about, and that as someone who operates differently, who's differently abled, he's constantly having to think about. And all he's asking for is for the uprights to understand. So as he's there at Oxford, they figure out, based on his needs, his care that they estimated is going to triple what they estimated. And now he doesn't know if he's going to be able to stay. Oxford's not going to give him the money. They're saying, okay, you need to crowdsource it. So now he's got to, in addition to his studies, he's there. Now he has to crowdsource again for more money for his care. In addition to his studies, in addition to dealing with, because again, in the beginning of the book, he's on caretaker number 6. These people who come, who are incapable of caring for him the way that he needs. And in fact, he talks about, I think it was 2. He talks about 2's last straw was, it was a long day of school, and he came home and he wanted to have a shower. And she's like, don't you want to, aren't you tired? You can do that in the morning. And she just didn't want to do it. And he put his foot down and he said, no, I want a shower. And she rolled her eyes at him. And that was like, he's like, no, I'm not going to deal with this. You are here to help me. And I thought it was interesting because he talks about, I forget which caregiver it was for or whatever, but he talks about how the caregiver says that we're not used to caring for people like you. We're used to caring for old white people who their biggest activity is going for a walk in the afternoon. They're not out here living. And he said, and you're out here and you want to live and you want to do. And he's like, I can't keep up with you. And he needs a caregiver who can keep up with him because he's doing the schooling, but he needs somebody else to do the things for him. So the whole book is about, he actually does graduate from Oxford, he gets his degree, and it does work out that he doesn't acquire any debt, although at one point there's some uncertainty because, like I said, the care was triple what they thought, and so they asked him to crowdsource again, so he opens a new crowdsourcing campaign, but then he's also working with other people, and he does end up making a connection with, he just refers to him as the billionaire. So he makes a connection with the billionaire, and the billionaire offers to bridge the gap. So at one point, he just gets a letter from Oxford that says, your bill's good, everything's taken care of, you're all good. So it does work out and he does get his degree, but his point was like, at what cost? Because he had to go through so much, and so much of his autonomy was taken from him throughout the process. So many times he just had to swallow it and go with it, you know, for his own sake as well as his caregiver's sake and everybody else involved. But it's a really great story, and if you want to feel bad about doing nothing, where Eddie's out here doing everything, sipping Dom Pérignon through a straw. Reimagining Success as a Disabled Achiever by Eddie and Ndopu.
That's a great book. Thank you for sharing it.
It was exciting, and it was a fast read too, really fast.
Yeah.
All right. So, what memoir do you have for us today?
Okay, so I brought Rental Person Who Does Nothing.
Yes, I put this on the list because I do the list for the new nonfiction books every month, and I put this on for January because this just came out, right?
Yes, it's brand new. It came out in January. It's by Shoji Morimoto, and I had so many thoughts while reading this. So the book it's a memoir. It's mostly about him. He starts his service and he defines his service, he defines what doing nothing is, he defines how he takes requests, he defines what type of requests that he's willing to take and in what circumstances, and that takes the most of the book. There's also a section on money and how he like earns money, which is that he doesn't. It's free unless there's like a food charge or like a travel charge.
Okay.
So he lives off of savings for a while. He's also tweeting about his experiences while he's doing this, and I have so many thoughts. There's just so
I
many
have some thoughts as you're saying those words.
And you know, for example, like what does do nothing mean? So in essence, like he kind of defines that as like he can, you know, give like general responses back, but like all he can really do is like, you know, sit there. You know, like
so like don't ask him to help you move.
Yeah, like that's not doing nothing, but he'll sit there and he'll watch you work.
Okay.
Which is the thing that people ask him
So like
to do.
if I'm knitting, could I ask him to hold the yarn?
No. But he would sit next to you if you wanted the company and do nothing while you knit.
We can't even talk?
I mean, he'll make general basic responses unless he has like some, you know, vernacular for the subject.
It's a good thing it's not charging.
So I got to a point in the book where I realized that I do not understand Japanese culture.
Yeah,
and
it's very
this book
Japanese.
is very steeped in Japanese culture, and so that for me was a learning experience while I was reading this book. And a lot of like what he writes, it's sort of like anti-capitalist in a way. He's kind of like, you know, cheating the system, trying to like prove that people have value, even if they're not offering anything to society, but even just like existing is valuable. Exactly. So that's kind of what he's going for in terms of where he starts in terms of this do nothing philosophy. He was working a job with long hours. He hated the job, and he kind of got to a company culture place where, you know, people were sort of replaceable, and he's like, well, no, people have value beyond, you know, what they can earn monetarily. So that's kind of what this book is about, and it was actually very relatable.
Okay.
I feel like I've met people that kind of make these same arguments like at a party, you know, throughout my life, or just people that want to go off and do their thing, you know, in some other country, for example. And then I got to a point in the book where I started questioning if he was actually doing nothing. Because he was tweeting, he was inspiring people, he was creating community, the people
Getting book content.
Well, that's funny that you say that because he used a ghostwriter. So he
did nothing for the book either.
Yeah, he did nothing for the book either.
Interesting.
I won't spoil it, but the end, I kind of called it a chef's kiss because it kind of just like put it all together, and it kind of took my breath away in like a way that I wasn't expecting.
And fast read?
It was a fast read. I read it in like 3.5 hours. So it was a really fast read.
One desk shift.
I'm not sure if he succeeded exactly. I mean, he sort of did.
Well, so you say succeeded, but what was his objective?
Well,
to do nothing?
His idea was to illustrate that people have value.
People have value.
There's
intrinsic value to humanity.
Yeah, intrinsic value, or just like value, even monetarily. He didn't go into the route of like universal basic income, but like he kind of, like he was almost there without saying the words. He says that there's this commodified idea of value in this book that defines him as a person who's doing nothing, where he's still treating it like work, even though he doesn't directly get paid, and he has a role with set responsibilities and expectations. So it is sort of a job, the way he takes it.
I mean, because technically he's showing up, and just by showing up, you're doing something.
Exactly. So he shows up. He accompanies people on their experiences. He watches people while they were studying.
I wonder if they did better on their tests because he was there watching them.
Well, I think they just wanted to be motivated to actually do
like,
it.
Well, actually, it's like an accountability thing. Like, if you're here, then I can't go on my phone and scroll Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what I do.
But he's also a person that people can like vent to, so people rent him out when they just need to like get something off their chest and they don't want it repeated anywhere.
Cheaper than therapy.
Cheaper than therapy.
It's free, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's why people come and talk to us at the desk.
There's
because we're cheaper than therapy.
So there's this section of the book where he kind of talks about him never getting close. Like he never wants to get too close to anyone. Because sometimes when they tell him these secrets, like you can't not feel empathy and like feel like you know them. It's really easy to like kind of identify with him, the way he writes it. Again, he didn't write it, but like it's written in his voice, and the writer was a good writer, because I wouldn't have known that it was a ghostwriter unless he told us in the book that it was ghostwritten.
And he says it in the book?
He says it in the book that he used a ghostwriter, and it's part of his point leading towards the end of the book.
I mean, you're selling it. I'm going to check this book out.
I mean, I feel like part of me is like still so...
I can feel it.
Like I'm like kind of blown away by this book about like...
You're like tripping over your words. You want to say so much.
Yeah, I want to say more, but I don't want to spoil the book. Because
so come talk to Michelle on the desk if you've read about it.
It's really philosophical, and I really like philosophical books. Like I love like women talking when all they do is like sit there. So
this is something that you're going to be thinking about long after you returned it.
Essentially, yeah.
That's awesome, because I think about Eddie.
Yeah.
Long after I returned this book.
Yeah.
When I complain about having to get up and get the kids ready for school and stuff like that.
So again, this is A Rental Person Who Does Nothing by Shoji Morimoto, and eventually TV cameras start following him around. There is a TV show in Japan that's sort of inspired by this, and I don't know how much he's actually involved with it.
They have the best, the craziest shows in Japan. Have you seen that one show where the kids go out and do errands?
I haven't.
So little kids go out and do errands. Like they'll get on a bus and go to the grocery store and buy the food for them to have dinner tonight. And it's just the little one in the camera. And they just go on these errands, and like sometimes they get lost and they just have to like, and that's like what you're talking about, the Japanese culture. Like they just, okay, you're gonna figure it out. You're 3.5, but figure it out.
Yeah, so he is actually, I think, in his 40s now, but I think at one point I was like, I don't know. There was an aspect of this book that I sort of found a little immature.
Okay.
Which I feel seems
Well, it's a very privileged thing to do, to leave a career, to have savings to live off of, and to then just go out and do these. It's a very luxurious, privileged place to have that option.
And initially, like when I started reading this, I thought he was like 21. And then I find out that he's like 35 in the book, and he's now probably like in his 40s. So if you like philosophical books and you like kind of like debating things, like it's a memoir, but it's also just
something to make you think.
Yeah, and make you think.
Yeah.
You need something to talk
not just about his life, but about our own lives.
Yep, exactly.
So a great book for cocktail party banter.
I would say so.
And if you're going to Easter gathering, or
Yeah.
if you guys are getting together for the eclipse that's coming up next month,
Yes.
you want to
You
have
need
small
something to talk
talk.
about. It's a real quick read. I read it in like a few hours. Yeah.
All right,
So,
check it out.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So what should viewers do if they want to join in the conversation? Maybe they've read or have opinions about Rental Person Who Does Nothing, or they have
Yeah.
comments about
absolutely.
Eddie's adventures.
We would love for you to be a part of the discussion. Drop your comment below and just make sure to like and subscribe to the Cook Memorial Public Library District YouTube channel.
Yeah. And don't forget to turn on your notifications because you're not going to want to miss next month.
Mhm.
April is Poetry Month, and we have a
Poetry
special
Month.
surprise for
Yes.
you guys. Not going to spoil it. So see you then. And in the meantime, we'll see you at the reference
See you at the
desk.
reference desk.
Bye, guys.